This is eCoffee with Experts, where marketers and founders share what's actually working in SEO, AI, and digital growth. Grab your coffee and fuel your mind as we chat with top minds about their wins, struggles, and lessons you won't find in a blog post. Brought to you by Digital Web Solutions, we bring real talk to help you grow your business, one episode at a time. Let's get started.
Carl Holden, welcome to eCoffee with Experts. It's good to have you.
Thanks for having me.
I'm really excited to talk to you. You have so much going on in terms of marketing, AI, working with agencies, all things that I'm very interested in. You were just at MAICON, which is a marketing agency AI conference in Cleveland, Ohio. And I'm keen to hear what were some of your maybe big takeaways? You had a booth there. How did you feel coming away from the conference?
The people who organize that do a great job. Cleveland was fun to visit and meet all the different business owners and marketing agencies, marketing directors there. The tone was measured and cautious in that people are starting to realize that AI keeps getting better and that it's definitely something that they need to pay attention to. The opening keynote talked about the professional Go player who got just smashed by AI. And that was almost, coming on a decade ago, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And like the move, I think he said like move 37, he just stopped playing and did not expect a machine to make a move like that it felt creative. And I think we're all kind of in that move 37 or whichever number it was, moment of, hey, this stuff can do things I used to do. What do I get paid for in the future? What's my job? And really, I think the conference was a lot about figuring out where the human strengths still lie and also accepting that AI can do a lot of things we used to. And maybe that's okay, because there are things we used to do that took a lot of time, getting started with an idea, all that kind of stuff there's no excuse for a blank page. And I think that's really the takeaway is people recognize there's huge opportunity to make money with AI because the big tech companies are still kind of struggling to, even pay the power bill. ChatGPT somehow has gonna approach $1 trillion valuation, bleeds like $10 billion a month. It doesn't entirely make sense. But their tools and their systems used properly can make the general public money. And I think that's really the opportunity people need to pursue.
Yeah. And it's interesting. You mentioned something about what jobs do humans still have in the future? You run a marketing agency yourself, Zellus, and your other business, RankBot, works with agencies. What are some areas that you're seeing in the agency space where AI is making things much more efficient? Like, what are some use cases that either you're using internally or you're seeing your clients use that are creative?
Things have definitely changed. When ChatGPT came out, I said, I need to learn everything I can know about AI. So I took about 250 hours of courses from Duke University, LinkedIn, Google, Microsoft, Wharton Business School to really understand AI, not just like prompt engineering and here's 20 prompts that'll change your life. None of that crap. More like, how does it mathematically work? What is it capable of doing? Where is it moving in the future? What are the actual use cases for it? And once I understood that, I looked at what I did as an agency and thought, well, on the SEO side, where we're getting companies referenced out on other websites, that's kind of repetitive work and has a very step-by-step process. Some jerk is going to automate that and figure out how to do it. Then I thought, I could be that jerk.
Why not me? Yeah.
Why not me? If you're in control of the robot army, like those sci-fi movies, you're the last human to die. They turn on you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like the evil bad guy, hey, at least you live longer. And that's a silly joke to really say that building out RankBot made sense because I can automate and democratize what we do to a larger audience where they can just put in a website and it says the keywords that they want to rank for and then goes and gets them featured on high quality blogs. And that has been something that people have found really interesting, the ability to do that. Most of our customer base and the companies using it are other agencies where they want to sell what the bot does and then just kind of put a price on top of that and then deliver the links to the clients every single month. And that's just an easy solve for people who, especially in agencies where they don't have a big set system where maybe it's cheaper to do it themselves, where they've got clients who are asking for SEO. And, for as far as the off page, that's what the RankBot was built for. And then
Mm.
internally in my agency, we still use AI a lot in several different products for social media and for SEO content writing, for just generally writing most things. AI is usually an open window on most employees' computers. There are some rules that we have where you don't just immediately trust what the AI spits out for money pages of a client, but definitely we're creating far more content, probably 1,000 articles a month with a team of 5 people.
Yeah, that's huge. I'm curious because in Google's recent spam update that came out a couple months ago, they were talking about, what is considered AI content. And they're saying, obviously, we have algorithms that can track what is AI generated, but that's not necessarily what we're looking for. What we're looking for is unique and valuable content for the user. And if a Google crawls a page and it sees mostly repetitive content that's already out there on the internet, like that's going to be signified as, that basically triggers AI content. So I'm curious, how do you approach using AI, but having enough unique and valuable content using EEAT to create new enough content so that when Google crawls, it indexes and actually ranks?
Yeah, so again, that's where you don't trust exactly what comes out of the AI immediately. And if you say, write a dentist blog, 500 words, there are probably 1,000 other people doing that exact same prompt. And if you generate that, all of those other 500 people's articles look very similar. So there is
Hmm.
prompting specifics when especially it comes to money pages on a
Mm.
client's site where you want to be more specific to the brand and a purpose. But I think we overestimate what Google actually pays attention to. Google says a lot of
Mm.
things so that SEO professionals like ourselves feel like we have to be on our toes. Sometimes it's really funny how easy it is to cross that threshold of useful content. I think
Mm.
they're cutting the statistical outliers of the bell curve of content. All they can manage to do is just kind of cut out really, really, really spammy or really, really, really low content. And there's always going to be this
Mm.
kind of middle that they're not really sure about because it's so close to the other stuff. I tell a lot of people that half of what Google publishes is, I wouldn't call them lies, but it's definitely bending of what actually happens behind the scenes.
Mm. Yeah. How do you approach SEO strategy today as a CMO as opposed to, I guess, an agency owner? Like if I'm holding two different positions, right? And I have one that's mostly focused on strategy and the other that's focused on operations, like how do you balance those two priorities, while keeping business intentions at the top of the list?
Yeah, no, caffeine and a minimum of 6 hours of sleep.
Valid. Yeah.
We're in a reality and an economy that most of us who are capable of doing it are doing 2 or more things. And
Hmm.
if you're not doing that, then you're the one who's complaining about how, my job is tough and, I work so hard and I don't get enough. Well, I mean, even Jeff Bezos said that work-life balance is something that they do not encourage at Amazon. It's
Mm.
not something they talk about, and oftentimes it sounds like they don't hire people who get fixated on work-life balance. All that
Hmm.
being said, each organization has its own goals, and you just have to kind of block out your time and set your mindset towards the frame of what you're looking towards accomplishing. Like technically today in this conversation, I've got both hats on, but it just depends on what you're working towards and just regularly having those goals. And AI can help kind of sort through that. And I often use it as a sounding board to kind of talk through a strategic idea versus an operational idea, trying to keep those
Mm.
things separate without like annoying my other business partners.
Right. We do still have humans that we
Yes.
work with
Yes.
mostly every day.
I think we have a great opportunity of the stuff you hesitate to ask somebody else of like, is this a dumb question? Or do we even have time to discuss this? But if you're driving home and you want to talk through something, that's another way where you might get a perspective you didn't think about. And it's not like AI is actually giving you its perspective, but just the mathematical opportunity to look at the words and the situations and to give you perspective in its calculation is helpful enough.
Yeah. Yeah. And Paul Reitzer, who hosts the Marketing AI Institute and MAICON, where you just went, he talked on his podcast about how if the LLM groups, OpenAI and Gemini and everybody else could figure out this voice application that doesn't drop in dead zones, like when he's driving, that's typically when he uses it. He's like, I would sign up for that all day. I would pay a premium, but apparently it hasn't happened yet. And I've used that too, talking with AI just to parse out my ideas, so I don't sound like a babbling idiot when I'm going to a director or someone else. You teach organizations to become AI enabled rather than simply AI aware. What are the first steps for an organization to becoming AI enabled? And then I have a follow-up question to that.
Sure. A lot of my work as far as AI in our area has been helping government contracting to get caught up. Generally, Fortune 5000 and even smaller companies have really started to use this. The money opportunity in my area is helping the laggards kind of catch up. And the first way to catch up is to understand these systems. So oftentimes it begins with a couple weeks of training where we help them get caught up to speed, that AI isn't some kind of magical conscious block of computers, but that it's a set network of neurons that's an input output machine. We just have plugged a
Mm,
lot of other input output machines into it to make it feel like it's intelligent, but it's really not. Then walking through with them the security of what to share, not share. So education is the first step. And then the second step is usually hands-on activities in a secure, safe situation where they're not doing any kind of work material, but something that sounds like work material, and having people
mm,
practice with that. So training and then practice, and then they can get into the more sticky, like strategic and change management and all the other things. Because if they don't do the other stuff, then they go off on wild tangents. Early on in teaching people AI stuff, we went ahead and went straight to like strategy and realized that's a really bad idea, especially the less educated an organization is about this. They can't play catch up. They really all need to be on the same page, and have,
mm.
had several organizations now that we've done that kind of training with, starting to see them actually implement.
Yeah, you were starting to allude to it, but my follow-up question to that, the first question was how does how does an organization get started? Like what are the first couple steps? But the follow-up question is, let's say I am in a tech-enabled or an AI-enabled organization, like we're very AI forward, maybe what are some of the more nuanced use cases that I can use, or maybe some opportunities that maybe aren't the lowest hanging fruit, but now that I'm there, I can reach a little bit further.
The issue that we have with AI is that it can take certain tasks. I don't know that it takes certain jobs entirely, unless you're very niche to
Mhm.
one thing over and over, like voiceover artist. That's not a
Yeah.
job that's going to be around a whole lot more. Maybe famous people, but normal, non-famous voiceover artists, I think you're going to see on Fiverr and those other sites that just kind of disappears. Concept artists.
Mhm.
There's a lot less work than there used to be, but that's because it's a very small thing that they do over and over and over, over and over and over, and that it needs to be done in mass. And a lot of that stuff disappears. I'm saying all of that
Mhm.
to say if an organization doesn't have rules and a mindset of what can or can be replaced and how the people will be managed in that transition, it becomes chaos. It becomes anarchy. People will fight against it. They won't use the programs. They'll find ways that it's insecure if you don't have a rule set. And actually put together a small book on Amazon about that called the Trust Framework. That pretty much just goes through, you're having to go look at the technology and the risk management and the user and the strategy and then the training. And you go through all of those things, and then people are going to trust using AI more than just saying, all right, Jim, I know you like doing that Excel spreadsheet, and that was your whole job. You're fired. There are big companies that are doing that, and
Mhm.
them are having to hire back because AI wasn't really as good as they thought that it was. And now Jim sure as heck isn't going to come back and work for you after you fired him for a chat GPT.
Mhm.
And there, I even saw an article that Salesforce starting to see cracks in this whole Mark Benioff's idea that he could just replace a half of his staff with AI, and things just aren't working like they should. And the short-term profits were literally just the fact of cost savings and not having humans around. It wasn't an actual efficiency boost because there are a lot of wrong ways to do it.
Yeah, and you always need, at least now, you still need a human in the loop. We just went to Hrefs Evolve, and most of the speakers on the stage were talking about that. They're saying the same thing. AI is very useful. It can make things much more efficient. But if you don't have a human in the loop, things can go off the rails pretty easily. And if you're not catching that each iteration, each cycle, yeah, it can be very quickly paths can divert. So with someone who is, in marketing, or let's say they're an agency owner, what sort of initiatives or mindsets are you instilling in the people that work with you and work for you, of how are you encouraging them to adopt AI? Maybe it's not as relevant for Zealous because you're the spearhead and you're very at the forefront of this, but for a marketing agency owner that is not you, how would you encourage them to communicate to their team?
It's all about experimentation. There are so many programs and opportunities out there to use these systems. And if you're doing something over and over, and this is what we talk about with our employees, if you find or think that something can be automated by AI, we should try that, because I'm not going to fire you.
Hmm.
I'm going to find you to do something that's more productive and helpful for the company, and probably something more enjoyable than this repeated task you have to keep doing. And that's really where we've tried to make it to the benefit of the employee, that if they find a thing to use or to make it better, and that takes away some of the time that it takes for them. But I don't even like tell my employees they have to work 40 hours a week every single week. If they get everything
Mm.
done, and then we kind of benchmark up, if we're completing everything, where can we continue to add and grow, and to where it's not so much work life balance that I push, but more of, if you get everything done, why wouldn't you be incentivized to, and you get paid the same amount, why wouldn't you be incentivized to go and find systems that do generally as good as you, that you need to check? And we found that way of basically rewarding efficiency as the best way to help employees, just feel better about what they're doing and feel like they're adding to the company. Not everybody is on board with that. So if you run a business, all people will know that some people will do their job, and that's fine too. As you grow and things, I think a skill that employers like myself are looking for are somebody who is very system forward, somebody who is trying new things on a regular basis. But I often hire people that don't even have degrees in marketing. It's often people
Hmm.
doing it themselves and figuring it out, and that kind of bootstrapped entrepreneur, but maybe doesn't want to run a whole business themselves, are definitely the types of people that gravitate towards us.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds like me. I mean, I've tried my hand many times at entrepreneurial endeavors. Some work better than others, but ultimately I find myself the best as like an entrepreneur where there's a larger structure and I get the opportunity, grateful for a leader who can provide that sort of a space for me to experiment and be efficient and, get all my work done that I need to do, and then have the space to, yeah, to play around. I think that's the key message that I would encourage the listeners to really hone in on, is it's okay if the employees are finding more efficient ways to work and they're not working a total of 40 hours. Like, allow them that flexibility and actually encourage it. What sort of feedback loops or like reporting cycles do you have internally so that when your employees are doing that experimentation, they're encouraged to show it and showcase? Do you have some system like that?
We have a monthly meeting where that kind of stuff gets discussed. Again, we're a relatively small team that's able to accomplish
Hmm.
a whole lot. So I'm talking to all of them pretty regularly. So we're not doing a whole bunch of meetings, in that now they have contractors and stuff that work under them that they're responsible for. I don't really talk to those people. We basically are very horizontal, and whatever we implement with that person, that trickles down to the people they're in charge of, contractor
Mm.
wise. So I don't have a system to tell people, in that I have found that it's much easier to run small companies as far as amount of people, and work on efficiency as offering as wide a service as possible to
Hmm.
make the right types of money. Also, not put too much pressure on them or myself in some kind of like, we must hit this KPI quota this month, or I will steal your children's birthdays. It's not how I run.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about really raising revenue per employee, which is it's not an everyday metric that, most people are talking about, but it can definitely be a good metric to measure the health of the business, right? If you have a very high revenue per employee, there's some sort of a range of like healthy businesses. Can't remember it off the top of my head, but anyway, tell me more about the use of ethical AI. And I guess where to start with that is, what are we protecting against? Like, what is unethical use of AI?
Well, by nature, AI doesn't even really understand ethics. So ethical AI
Mm,
is just humans using AI ethically. Now,
mm,
AI has certain guardrails depending on the model that you're using. Like you've got a very loose one like Grok, you got a very tailored, tight-lipped one like ChatGPT that won't say anything offensive or even sarcastic. Even its sarcasm is just kind of emojis after a
mm,
word that might be termed as snarky, while as Grok can make up swear words if it runs out of swear words. Neither of those systems is any more ethical than the other. The people that
mm.
were creating them and the ethics that they decided, that's where ethics actually comes into play. And then how you use it. And that's what I was referencing to beforehand. Do you have a framework in your organization that establishes your ethics of how you intend to use AI that represent the interests of your clients, the interests of your employee, and the interests of those who are in charge to make money from your company? And those three things, the ethics there for those organizations can sway just like the LLMs. I don't know that anybody has a specific set that works for everyone. I mean, you even know this, what we do in SEO that works may not be certain things other people are comfortable with. Maybe they don't want to email people asking them for a link, but that's what works. So ethically, that's fine
Mhm.
with us. We don't care if we're going to spam you a little bit. It's how it gets done. That's how the internet
Yeah.
has worked for a decade, 2 decades. So ethics varies just like humans do. So it's a terrible answer to a really good question, but it's like there's not, it's case by case. The big thing is you need to be deciding what your ethics are with this rather than letting it be decided by a specific set of employees or by your shareholders. As the leadership within an organization who's making these decisions, it's important to do it early now before you get caught in some kind of recursive loop you can't get out of.
Hmm. Are there maybe one, two, or three questions that you as a leader or you as a leadership team should be asking yourselves in order to come up with those guidelines and standards for ethical AI use in your organization? Like, what are those couple questions?
I think the first one is, how much do people internally, how much are we like comfortable with this, first of all? And that comes down to, again,
Mm,
the training of, does everybody generally understand how this works and what it's good at? And if everybody's informed on what it is and it or isn't, you're just coming from a better place to make decisions. And then I'd say the next thing to decide would be, when we find something, an AI that is better than people, what does that transition process look like at a specific task? And oftentimes it comes down to the people who are doing that task using the AI. But you have to
mm.
set it up culturally that they are not using it to replace them, but to augment them and to take away the mundane from that task or the difficulty of that task. But simultaneously, you need to be having the conversation with that person. Now that we've saved this time, what can you be working on that you'd like to be working on? And you can move that post with them. I just don't believe the organizations who just say, all right, cool, we can just change all these documents to English, Spanish, French, and German without any people whatsoever. You're all fired. You, Jim, you've never done this before. You go do their job. Jim's never done that. Jim has no experience in any of that system, but that's how companies are running it. They should have left those people there and 10x their ability to output. We should really,
Yeah.
and that's what MAICON talks about, is like, let AI be a multiplier of your existing people, because it's way harder to hire than it is to retain people. And if AI is such an efficiency boost, isn't it better left in the hands of the people who were doing that work?
Exactly. There's there's only so many expenses you can cut to increase profit margins, but increasing revenue is exponential. There's no limit. But why? Yeah, exactly. I think that that's the way to think about it as a small business or really any business. My
No,
apologies.
you're good. It just really, like, you can cut salaries, but then you cut your ability to make money too. And I think they understand that the whole chart drops when you do that. These other people who are left, and that's the one last point I want to make is, however you do this, whoever's still left standing is completely affected by the ones that you changed their jobs or fired them. There is no company in the world whose morale went up. Why don't you go to Amazon and ask how morale is right now? Those
Yeah.
employees who are left become less efficient, start looking for other jobs. There's a whole trickle-down effect that these organizations aren't even thinking about, to where when Amazon does want to hire one day and they've become fully automated, as they say, and then they become super inefficient, you could see it took one or two hacks and all of AWS went down. You mean to tell me
Yeah.
a company that hosts over half the internet couldn't keep the servers up for a whole day? Maybe because they were monitoring it with AI. Other things and inefficiencies. This has never happened before, but computers are smarter than they ever have been. So you tell me why we had a crash. Maybe because they didn't have enough people.
There you go.
There you go.
Seriously. And it's funny that you say that, because my fiance is a manager at Amazon corporate. She's in the risk management department, and she literally said yesterday, on Monday, November 3rd, they got a memo that 30 people were getting laid off from her department. And she wasn't a part of that, but I asked her, I was like, how do you feel about that? She's like, well, she kind of shrugged. She's like, there's nothing I can do about it, and I'm just gonna keep doing my best. Luckily, she's in good graces with her manager. She got promoted twice last year. She's very much, I hesitate to say she is safe from future layoffs, because who knows? But my advice to her was, based on all the people that I talk to, the industry that I'm in, is you can make yourself more useful by using AI to, again, try and lay yourself off by using AI first before a layoff can get to you, and make sure you're displaying that to your manager. That is how you're going to stay ahead of the wave. I don't know if that's the right thing.
Yeah, it's tough in that situation, and I wish her the best. I've never really worked in a big organization like that, so I can't speak to how that operates. So that's a whole set of anxieties and other things that I've never really been a part of. I've always been in self-employed, but I have lots of friends that have those same kind of issues. I think we all kind of have to understand that anyone can technically be on the chopping block, so adding to your skills and your capabilities and widening a jack of all trades, master of none. You've heard that term, right? Did you know there is more to that phrase? Jack of all trades, a master of none is still better than a master of one. Changes the whole paradigm.
Changes the whole game. Yeah,
because
for
it
sure.
isn't about, because for the longest time we were told specialize, specialize, specialize. And it's literally the people who have specialized down to a single task that are the ones being punished. So broaden your capabilities and your usefulness to an organization, just like a tree with more roots doesn't get pushed over by the wind. When the winds of change come, it's way harder to push you over.
I like that analogy, the deep root tree analogy. So Carl, where can we find more, if we are interested in learning more about AI? I know you have your own education platform. You have many books available. Where's the best place where we can find you, or some places?
I'm really reachable on LinkedIn. I have 5,000-6,000 or so connections on there. I will talk to anyone. Just don't message me. And as soon as I hit yes, you send me a follow-up sales thing about your AI platform. I try not to do that to people. Please don't do it to me. But I will connect with people if they have questions. I'm very easy to get a hold of. My email is easy to find on the Zellus website as far as the agency goes. And then for RankBot, it's easy to find. There are multiple RankBots, but if you Google RankBot, mine is number one because it's really good at SEO. But the URL is rankbot.com.
Cool. Carl Holden, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.